So stop me if you heard this one. A college graduate and a high school graduate walk into a bar, and the college graduate makes $1 million more over his lifetime. I know, it's not very funny, but people keep telling it. That $1 million figure has been floating around for years now. In 2007, Arizona State University used it to justify a tuition increase by saying in a press release, average annual earnings of individuals with a bachelor's degree are more than 75% higher than the earnings of high school graduates. These additional earnings sum to more than $1 million over a lifetime, and that is just an average. That is just an average, and that's the problem. You can't look at future earnings for college graduates with an average. Why? Well, let's go to the whiteboard. So here's a little math lesson. Let's say we have a set that contains 10 numbers, and one of them, for the sake of argument, is way bigger than all the rest. So what's the average? Well, hey, look at that. It's 1 million. But for this set, the average hides important data about the probability of getting a number that's higher than 1 million, a small chance of just 10%. Alright, that example is a bit hyperbolic, but for even a set with 10 numbers, the possible combinations for an average of 1 million are massive. Averages aren't a good tool for predicting future income because all they do is just spread the wealth around. That's right, averages are nothing but a bunch of pinko liberal commies. All kidding aside, you can't predict the future, but if you're trying to figure out what the average college grad makes, you want to avoid averages and stick to things like the median and the mode of a set, which are the numbers in the middle and the numbers that come up the most. And when you take a look at the median lifetime income difference between high school graduates and college graduates, you find that it's only a smaller, but still nothing to scoff at, $750,000. You could also take the word of Charles Miller, who, by the way, was the head of former Secretary of Education Margaret Spelling's Commission on the Future of Higher Education, who said that if you take into account advanced degrees that cost more, the massive amounts of debt that most students take out to pay for college, and the opportunity cost of going to college, which gives the high school graduate a head start in the workforce, the difference between the two is only about $280,000. But life is pretty long, so what's the difference in the short term? Well, let's go back to the whiteboard. Using the latest census data on median earnings by age and education, those up to age 24 have a median income of $19,659 for high school graduates and $27,074 for college graduates. That's bachelor's degrees. Fun fact, the high school income figure also includes individuals with GEDs, and you could argue that if you excluded the GEDs from the figure, that the income would be significantly higher. But, of course, we've got to work with the numbers that we're given. The difference between the two, $7,415. That's pretty good, right? But don't forget about those loan payments. The New York Times just ran an article saying that the median debt for recent bachelor's recipients is $20,000, so that seems like a good place to start. Over 10 years, depending on the interest rate, that yearly minimum payment will be around $2,760, which reduces the earnings difference by a third. Now let's take a look at my amount of student loan debt, $50,000, and my overall interest rate of about 5.2%. That's a monthly payment of almost $535, which, by the way, is enough to buy a new 16GB iPad every month. And the yearly total is a whopping $6,420. I've now lost all but $1,000 on my lead over the high school graduate. Here's where it starts to get crazy. I was video chatting with a friend of mine the other day about all this student loan stuff. I know, surprise, surprise. And a friend of his was there, we'll call him Bob, and Bob told me he was about $106,000 in debt, all from his public university. And most of those loans were private loans, which have a higher interest rate than the federally subsidized loans that he didn't qualify for. Over 10 years, his monthly payment for those loans will be about $1,200, and over the course of a year, about $15,000, which, if he made the median income for college graduates, would be like earning $6,000 less than a high school graduate. Now, lucky for Bob, he makes about $40,000 a year, but he has a mortgage before he even has a house. That puts a big financial strain on him if he wants to start a family, or change careers, or travel the world while he's still young. The worst part of all of this? Well, what if because of the high monthly payment on his student loan, Bob starts using credit cards or taking out cash advances to make ends meet? Now he's adding more debt to the pile, which could offset any raises that he gets when he moves into the next age bracket, and the high school graduate could still have a higher net income. The moral? Don't let the $1 million myth sucker you into taking out massive amounts of loans to pay for college. Sure, you're likely to make more than a high school graduate in your lifetime, but I'd rather have a shiny new iPad every month.